This life is the only life I know. I know who I am and love everything about the person within. My life is a journey. No need for directions. As long as I'm moving forward, I'll find my way. And when I make it there, I'll look back on the road from previous days and leave street signs for the next person to find their way. I live without fear, without regret, accepting with every choice I've made, thus being a lifer.
Currently, there are more than 1.2 million homeless youth enrolled in schools across the nation. Children experiencing homelessness are more likely to suffer academically and are more likely to drop out of school when compared to their house peers. The number of homeless students increased gradually over the years. The percentage of homeless students that meet standards in all major subjects in school is significantly lower compared to those who are housed. The graduation rate is lower than those students who are housed, and the dropout rate is higher.
As far as my upbringing, it's a bit of a Cinderella story, but the guy version without the slippers. I was in and out of DCFS, foster care. Mother gave me up for adoption at the age of 5, the beginning age of 5. I have family members who were cruel and locked in closets, locked in basements, stood in corners for hours at a time. Sometimes I would get fed the noodles with, little maggots in it at that time. So it was a crazy upbringing coming up. And when I was 7 years old, I slept on the floor next to a radiator, that the old school radiators that spit steam out, with a hole in the wall that had ants and different other critters and bugs flying in and out of that space in that part of the house. So I haven't slept in a bed for about 2 years, from 7 to 9 years of age. And I still went to, at the time, I attended Harold Washington Elementary School. And then as I turned 13, I got back with my biological mother. My father was a big-time drug dealer, and he was in and out of prison. During that time, it was good to be back with my biological mother, but that soon fell short. I woke up one morning, and my biological mother was gone, and I didn't think nothing of it. I know she would leave out pretty late at times of the week, and I didn't think nothing of it. So about a couple more days went by, and she was still gone. And I would attend school as if nothing happened. I don't want to be in a situation. So about a month and a half passed, and my mom is still not at the house. And at 13 years of age, you're thinking, okay, what's going on? What did you do? Did you have anything to do with her leaving? But I soon felt that I had nothing to do. I had nothing that I did that promoted her to kind of leave.
400 million abandoned children live on their own on the streets of hundreds of cities around the world. They subsist hand to mouth. They struggle to just survive the day. UNICEF defines an abandoned child as one who does not know where his or her next meal is coming from, does not know where he or she is spending the night. He or she does not live with either their mother or their father. While defining a problem is helpful, no definition illustrates the plight of abandoned children as clearly as the following set of statistics. Every 2 seconds, a child becomes an orphan. Every 14 seconds, a child is orphaned by AIDS. Hundreds of millions of children worldwide live with less than $1 a day.
For a period of 3 months and a half, my mother was no longer there. So every day, I would pretty much fend for myself. And then there were no lights, there were no gas, there was no hot water in the house for those remaining 3 months and a half. And I would simply go to school as if nothing happened. I knew about DCFS, I knew about foster care, I knew about how you're in the system and you come into these foreign parents, and you essentially feel like they would treat you wrong. They would get a check every month on you and they would treat you wrong. And that was my thinking at the age of 13. So every day I would come home from school and do my homework on the front porch. Remember, I didn't have electricity, so I had to do my homework while the sun was out to be able to do my homework. Every day, 5 days a week at Alex Haley Elementary School, I would eat the rectangle pizzas with the cube sausage and the soggy fries and the peanut butter bars that are wrapped in the purple and silver wrappings with the super donuts and the sugary milk that you open up the whole way and you dip the peanut butter bars. Such a great time. But on the weekend, for 48 hours, I would starve. I don't know what students have now, what it's like, what it feels like to go 48 hours without food. And the only companion I had at the time was my best friend. His name was Shelby Stanton. He stayed about 5 houses down from me. He invited me over for video games and pizza one day with his mom and his family. It was about a house of maybe 8 to 10 in the house. And I met his grandmother. Her name was Emma Allen. And we went downstairs, played video games for about 5 hours. And it came 9:15, and his grandmother, Emma Allen, came downstairs. She said, "Boy, don't you got to be home?" I said, "No, ma'am. I haven't. I don't have curfew. My mom doesn't care if I stay out as late as I can. She doesn't care about any of that." So she said, she looked at me as if to say, something wrong with that picture. Maybe I should look into this deeper. For the first couple of days, I lied to her about my situation. Again, I didn't want to end up in the system of DCFS and foster care. And I came to visit again, same time, went downstairs, played games, and told her my story. After lying to her so many times, I finally told her the truth. This is the first adult that I felt that I can trust with knowing my information, knowing my background. So I told her my story, and she said, "Why don't you stay here for the night? We'll look for your mom in the morning." I said, "Okay." So 2 weeks go by, and I'm still at this woman's house. And to me, I'm like, I'm here so long. I have to go home, Miss Allen. I can't see myself being here too long because I feel like I'm freeloading. You already have a family of 8 to 10 here. I need to go home. She said, no, you can stay. And what I didn't know is that she had found my mother a couple of days after. And as I was about to leave, force myself to leave because I didn't want to stay there too long, she posed a question to me. She said, "I like you. You're a very respectable young man." She said, "Would you like to become a part of our family?" What advice I would give to the youth? This is what worked for me. It's clinging to the positive people in my life, whether it be a godparent, whether it be a friend that you're really close to, and listening to the older people who've been there and done that. We discount the older generation, the older adult population, and they have a lot of value to give to us, and that is wisdom, that is knowledge, that is knowing that they've been in our shoes before. And that was the really take from it all, where I got, okay, I know exactly what to do because they've been through it. I've seen the mistakes, I've seen what works. Why don't I just continue to do what works?
People who have limited education or income or who live in poor neighborhoods have worse health and health care compared to those who are better educated or financially better off. People with disabilities are also in worse health and receive worse health care compared to people without disabilities. Blacks and others living in or near low-income or distressed neighborhoods are exposed to greater levels of lead and allergens in their homes, as well as to harmful emissions from nearby bus depots, factories, and dumps. The fact that a community that's home to about 750,000 people on the greater south side of Chicago, an overwhelming portion of which sits in my congressional district, does not have one level 1 trauma care center, literally results in needless loss of life for far too many of us.
I grew up right off Stony Island and 87th Street, and the kind of neighborhood that I grew up in was one that I was fortunate enough to be able to see some of the worst parts of Chicago, Jeffrey Manor or South Shore area of the city, but I also got to see some of the nicer parts that were proximal to me in Peel Hill, what they call Peel Hill, or the Calumet part of Chicago. And with that gave me some insights into life, into certain possibilities on both sides. I was able to see a different side of life. I grew up on, what we call free lunch, the free rides to school. What that translates to when you get to college is full financial aid, and monetary wealth was not something that I had. I grew up even less affluent than some of my friends who would consider themselves hood, but I had intellectual wealth, and that was the big thing that I came with. I had two parents who definitely pushed me to aspire to do well and excel, not just in the classroom. I started to realize that, if there are young men and women on the south side of Chicago, the west side of Chicago, parts of the north side that have never even been downtown Chicago, they've never seen the Gold Coast. They've been relegated to the square mile area that they live in. They go to the corner store there, they get gas there, they get their tobacco products, alcohol, it doesn't matter, food, anything that you need, drugs are in these communities, and they don't leave. And that does, to me, and the way I perceive things now, having a little bit more exposure, that only limits our opportunities. So I started mentoring young men on the south side of Chicago once more, and that fueled my passion to go further, to do some of the things that I've done now more recently, as far as official, work or research that is involved within the community that I come from. And when I got to medical school here at the University of Chicago, it was a very surreal experience, because the University of Chicago sits on a part of the south side that is surrounded on three sides by the Woodlawn area, the South Shore area, the Auburn, Gresham, and Inglewood, and then even Bronzeville to the north of, and the only nice area that's next to, or the affluent area, would be the Kenwood or North Hyde Park area where the Obamas stay, where very many affluent people stay. But other than that, this university is a jewel amongst, or a rose that may be amongst the concrete that is in Chicago. And for many people, this is just some buildings, some lights that they never may have an experience with. And I know that I felt that way growing up in the shadows of the university, but that made me want to be here to help make change, to help be somebody who can advocate for the people who live here, for the patients that come here. And I'm able to see that now when I'm working in the wards and the emergency department, and being able to make connections with people based on the fact that I sound like them. I come from where they come from. They know that from the moment I walk in. They just ask what high school I went to, what block am I from, etc. And that allows them to trust me a little bit more.
A person's health status in life is determined by a number of factors, including one's behavior, genetics, social circumstances, the environment in which one lives, even as an unborn child, and one's access to health care. Health disparities can be driven by so-called social and economic determinants such as income level, education, and living conditions in homes and neighborhoods. Healthcare disparities have proved persistent as well. African Americans, for example, are 3 times more likely to die from heart disease compared to their white counterparts. A recent U.S. government report showed that since 2007, inpatient care for people with heart failure has actually grown worse for Hispanics and Latinos, Native Americans, and Alaska Natives. These minorities with heart failure are younger than their white counterparts. They also encounter socioeconomic, language, and cultural barriers to care that lead to higher rates of readmission to hospitals and to poorer outcomes.
Right before my second year of medical school, my life changed in many ways. My brother was murdered on the south side of the neighborhood that I grew up with, my older brother, and that was something that struck not only myself very hard, but my community. He was somebody who protected people. I had many friends that when I was a child, I can remember a couple instances in particular where friends had bikes stolen. Friends had people that may have roughed them up that weren't from our neighborhood, and it would be my brother that would go try to reconcile that, go get the bike back, or go be somebody that could defend those that were a little bit younger. And what this did for me was this created a certain reputation that I didn't have to live up to, that I see a lot of my friends that may have gone in the wrong direction living up to or pursuing as far as their life. And to be more detailed about that, many young men in the inner cities around America struggle with identity and the fact of being tough, being accepted, the alpha male. Am I strong enough for this situation? And they end up trying to spending a lot of their adolescent years trying to prove something to somebody. My brother's death in 2012 ended up being the life-altering experience that has forever connected me with the inner city communities, with people from the similar backgrounds from me. And my only hope is that I can continue to use that painful experience and the tears that I went through, the pain that my family went through, as experiences that aren't wasted, that can be used to help or to shape the way that I can help other people not suffer from those same things in any way possible. Supply and demand is a life theme, where a low supply of anything is going to create a demand. And a low supply is a problem. So if you find any problem in your community that there's a demand for, then there will be a high demand for somebody who can solve that problem. That's why I believe that there are endless opportunities in inner cities if we can properly articulate it, properly advocate and allocate resources to help people. But once we've identified those things, once we have it, then there should be endless opportunities for people to become comfortable, to provide for their families, while also improving the community at home. But it takes unity. So being able to unify, teamwork, being able to work with others, being able to identify with others' problems without you having to go through it first is the key to, I think, a lot of success and the key to improving communities of all sorts, no matter where you go in this country or the world.